Hello chess friends and welcome to your Zarov Chess channel and welcome to a very nice game that I prepared for you today as a warm-up for the FIDE World Chess Championship match between Gukesh and Dinglin. We have here Surya Shekhar Ganguly against Arjun Erigiaisi from the round 5 of the Qatar Masters in 2024. The Qatar Masters is now also a very beautiful tournament that's going on now in Doha, and I think the top favorite to win the whole thing is Arjun Erigiaisi. Arjun played so far 3 wins and 2 draws of the 5 rounds that he played. He's not on the first place, but I think if nothing dramatically changes, if Arjun continues to play like he played so far, he could be really the winner of this very nice tournament. And I really love Arjun Erigiaisi's recent performances. He's playing very aggressive chess. He's playing also, I think, very solid positional chess, so his games are really interesting when it comes to also opening theory. So let's see now what happened. In my opinion, here Arjun pulled off really an amazing Najdorf Sicilian against Surya Shekhar Ganguly's English attack. So with white here, Ganguly opened with the move e4. We have c5 by Arjun, the Sicilian defense, knight f3 d6 d4. Now we have the open game, and after knight f6, knight to c3 and a6, we have now the Najdorf variation of the Sicilian defense. Bishop to e3. Here Ganguly goes immediately into the so-called English attack. The idea is clear. We want to play f3, queen to d2, g4, h4, h5, and similar stuff. We're trying to attack immediately from white's perspective. Here the king side, e5 by Arjun, attacking the knight, knight to b3. We have now reached the standard position of this line. We have bishop to e6, f3, as we mentioned, with the preparation to play queen to d2, g4, even in some lines, of course, queenside castling, and simply go into this opposite side attack game where, of course, white would coordinate the attack towards the king side and black would probably attack the queen side. We have now bishop to e7, queen to d2, and now Arjun plays a very interesting sideline, which is now a very popular method. It's the move h5, and this move, of course, is blocking out the possibility of white to play the move g4, which makes perfect sense. But the downside about this line is, of course, that if you castle kingside, then you have already weakened your structure in front of your own king. So it's a, I would say, double-edged line, which is, in my opinion, still the best method, because probably nothing dramatic is going to happen in the center of the board. You can even stay a little bit longer with the king in the center if you don't want to castle immediately, because it's very hard for white to coordinate some kind of an attack. You have a great control of the d6 pawn, and white will have a tough time to somehow attack the d6 weakness because you have played already a6. So that's why h5 perfectly fine. Here we have bishop to e2 by Ganguly. He's preparing maybe in some lines also to play kingside castling, because now his whole g4 concept that he prepared is simply not working. So what should you do instead of bishop to e2? Even if you try bishop to g5, has been played in chess history, then you go with knight from b2 d7, and even if white forces this idea to castle queenside and somehow launch the flank attack on this side of the board, then I think black after move b5 is slightly faster in this attack. Then after something like h4, we can immediately put more pressure against this knight. Then after knight to d5, bishop to d5, e takes d5, and a5, I think black should be already better here. So white should not lose this decisive tempo in the opening stage with the move bishop to g5, because it simply doesn't make sense. As I said, black is simply faster with his move b5. And when I watch now the database, I see only 2 games in this particular line where both games were won with the black pieces. One great game by Vidit Santosh Gurati and one by Sandip Seturaman. So this bishop to g5 concept, I think, also is not working here for white. So that's why bishop to e2, Ganguly prepares now to play kingside castling. Knight from b2 d7, knight to d5, bishop to d5, and now after e takes d5, the game becomes unbalanced. The game becomes asymmetrical when it comes to pawn structures, which means now that we have this 4 versus 3 situation on the king side, where black should be slightly better. So black is trying to play now in sort of a King's Indian style, if you're familiar maybe with the King's Indian structures, where you have already this d6 e5 pawn structure. Now you're trying to play f5, maybe even g5. You're trying to launch now suddenly a kingside attack, so suddenly black becomes slightly better on this side of the board. Queen to c7. Here Arjun controls now the c5 square, because in this particular line, white is trying now to attack the queen side with c4 and c5, tries of course somehow to break and enter here, especially around the square c5. Rook to c1, you see Ganguly is preparing now this method, and now h4. Arjun goes now immediately for the king side attack. We have now king side castling, bishop to g5. In none of these lines is working because of knight to d5. Is simply winning a pawn. You pick up this one, then the queen gets deflected from the defense of the bishop. If you pick up the bishop, then of course the knight still can recapture the bishop on e7, and black is continuing the game with an extra pawn. Could be of course immediately a winning endgame. So here after h4, Ganguly plays now kingside castling. Arjun goes now for the f4 weakness here that he has provoked. We have now rook to e1, which becomes now theoretical novelty here by white. Even if you try again to play bishop to g5, you should not do that, because the issue about this line is that actually after knight to f4, the dark squares get simply too endangered in front of white's king, so white should keep somehow the dark square bishop on the board. And then after something like queen to g7, we can play even here king to e7. Look at this, it's a crazy position. You deliver a check, and in some lines even the queen could be trapped here with rook to g8. But the main issue, I think, is of course this whole queen to b6 stuff, and then even in some lines maybe to deliver checkmate, to somehow try with knight to h5, knight to g3 to open the h-file. So it's really an unpleasant game if you go for the trades of dark square bishop, so then the dark squares would be simply too vulnerable here against white's king. So that's why rook from f to e1. Now we have castling, and now knight to a5, which is now, I think, the first tiny little inaccuracy here by Ganguly. The issue about this move, the issue about this move is that you simply get the knight far away from the action. It's not such a bad move when it comes to computer relations and when it comes to, I don't know, tactical possibilities. But notice now that this knight should be somewhere more towards this side of the board. Of course, the knight cannot be included into the game immediately, but maybe later. But now with knight to a5, I'm not sure what you're really doing here. What you are really attacking on the queen side. A better choice is here simply to play king to h1, go simply out of this mess, and then after something like b6, you go for this attack. You go for a4, then you try to play even a5, and if b5 happens, then you could maybe break and enter with the move c4, c5, then you could finally open the queen side, and here I think white could have really a good game. But after knight to a5, here Arjun plays immediately f5, goes now into the attack against here this king side. We have now b4, h3, good move here by Arjun, and after g takes h3, here I would say black is already better, because especially the king is endangered here, many weaknesses in front of the king. The knight is, as we mentioned, far away from the action, but now Arjun actually doesn't react correctly. Here he had the immediate great chance to play the move f4, and now it becomes really an attack similar to the King's Indian defense, if you're familiar with the King's Indian structures. Then after bishop to f2 that here Ganguly had to play, then we would then have this move e4, and this would be a spectacular one. Then you put more pressure, f3, the pawn is rolling, knight to f4 is coming, bishop to g5, and I guarantee you white will not have fun in this particular position. So after g takes h3, Arjun instead of f4 plays now bishop to h4, which was still okay. It's not like white is better because of this move bishop to h4, but really unnecessary move here by Arjun. Even if you try bishop to f2, then as we mentioned, bishop to f2, king takes f2, and then with queen to b6. So here still white should somehow try to keep the dark square bishop on the board. So that's why Ganguly played, I think, the correct choice. He plays now rook to f1, still keeps here the very powerful bishop on e3. What should you do now from black's perspective? Here, in order to somehow keep the pressure, Arjun should have played here rook to e8, and then after something like c4, again you have this method f4, bishop to f2, rook to f2, and now with knight to f6, e4. I think here black should be slightly better. White has of course some counter chances here with the move c5, but I think black's attack is again much faster against white's king. But here Arjun plays again maybe not the optimal move, knight to f6, which allows here Ganguly to get back into the game with the move c4, and suddenly black lost a couple of very important moves. f4 should have been played earlier, much earlier, and e4 already. So you see now with c4, black has also some tough time to defend his position after potential c5. Now finally Arjun plays f4, but now after bishop to f2, and rook to f2, okay, still white has this dark with problems, but now at least Arjun is trying to spice up the game with the move e4. And notice that Arjun could have played these moves much earlier without this whole knight to f6, without this whole bishop to h4 stuff. Now he realizes that there is a chance, and here Ganguly doesn't react correctly. He plays now the move queen to d4, which was simply not the optimal choice, because you should go here with rook to g2 and then simply put more pressure also against black's king. So black played an aggressive game here, but black has also a tough time to defend the king here around the square g7. Then after something like knight to d7, you're trying to control of course the e5 square. Here white could go with knight to b3, and after knight to e5 you have also a very nice square with the knight to d4, and now knight to e6 is also a huge threat. Notice how Ganguly's whole concept with knight to a5 simply wasn't really the most progressive plan, because his knight was far away from the action. But even in this line, Ganguly could have brought the knight in a spectacular way into the game. Look at this, knight to e6, and I think black is facing many tactical problems. But queen to d4 instead of rook to g2 here that Ganguly should have played allows here rook from a to e8, and now suddenly again black is breeding. Black has now a very nice coordination of the pieces. The pieces are well placed, I would say. Both rooks on very active files. The knights are very close to white's king. The pawns are rolling already in the center of the board, and again white has to find, I think, optimal choices to break and enter somehow in the position. So Ganguly plays so far the correct move, c5, rook to e5, counter play here by Arjun. We have now rook to d1, which wasn't really again the best choice. h4 maybe a slightly better approach. Then after something like b5, you can go f takes e4, rook to e4, and then with queen to d1 you can control the f3 square. At least you're trying to do something. At least you're not letting this pawn roll. But after rook to d1, what Arjun played now is of course d takes e5, although maybe rook to e8 is slightly better. You're waiting here white to make a reaction. If c6 happens, then you have b5, and you stopped somehow the progress of white's pawns. And even if, I don't know, something like c takes d6 happens, then again after queen to d6 this could be a comfortable game, because again the pawns are not rolling, so at least you don't have to worry about the pawn storm of white that's coming. But here after d takes e5, still I would say we have an equal game. Here Ganguly could have again spiced up the game with the d6, which is actually even the suggested move by top engines, but then the game becomes really complicated, very hard to see. Look at this, you play c takes d4, then of course white takes also the queen. You're trying to play the move d3, but now actually you sacrifice the piece. So very intense battle it could have been after potential d6 by Ganguly. Then you allow here black to take, and now this pawn is very unpleasant. You play f3, we go here with threatening of course the promotion here for white's perspective. You're trying rook to e8, but now you simply attack the knight, and this is really not such a fun game now to play with the black pieces. Actually the top engine Najdorf 17 says here that white is even slightly better after the potential d6 move. But now here queen to c5 played by Ganguly, and now here Arjun is not allowing any counterplay anymore in this particular position. Here Arjun plays queen to f7, which is a great move. He's not allowing now this queens to be off the board, and now he has again a nice attacking formation. Look at this, he has now enormous pressure. The king of white is naked. Again, the engines are saying here this should be playable for white. White can defend his position, but I think in the human level this is such a complicated position that you could make a tiny little inaccuracy and then the position is collapsing here for white. So rook to g2 here by Ganguly. Now we have e takes f3, bishop to f3, knight to e4. Look how black's pieces are playing now in perfect harmony, and now Ganguly makes, I think, the critical mistake with queen to d4, and suddenly here black is now completely winning position. In order to stay in the game, you have to play queen to c4, and then after something like knight to g5, again, it's so tough to see. You have to sacrifice the rook for the exchange, and then go with here after knight to f6. You should go with d6, and the pawn is rolling. Suddenly, white has also some kind of a control play. White has at least some attacking chances. Here after knight to g5, you have to really give up the exchange, because even if you try bishop to h5, then queen to h5, you're trying maybe to play the move d6, you're trying to do something like this. But if this pawn is rolling, then suddenly black has a completely winning game here. So in order to stay in the game, as we mentioned, queen to c4, knight to g5, and you have to play rook to g5 in order to somehow keep a drawish position. But queen to d4 is not so good, because here Arjun plays a beautiful counterattack with knight to g5. This is the way to go. The bishop is hanging. You cannot pick up, of course, here the piece, because you get the royal fork, and white is losing decisive material. It's game over here for white. So after knight to g5, bishop to g4 here by Ganguly, but now queen to e8, and now Arjun just continues the attacking flow here. Even with optimal moves, white cannot survive this attack. For instance, even if you try bishop to h5, this game over, because you get a check. You're trying maybe to escape, but then knight to h3, look at this, queen to h5, look at this, now knight to g5. The position is simply so crazy. Look at this, the check is coming, and this is a position that you can resign after a couple more moves. So this is not working. So after queen to e8, that's why here rook to f2, trying to create some breathing spaces for the king. But now f3, again Arjun is threatening the move rook to e1. What should you do? Again, if you play bishop to h5, again the same concept. You're trying maybe to cover. Seems tempting, but now look at this. There is this tricky idea. Queen to e2, and you cannot even cover with queen to f2 here, because you get knight to h3. As I said, really beautiful harmony here by Arjun Erigiaisi. So after move f3, white is desperately trying to escape somehow with king to f1, controlling also the e1 square, but now rook to f4. Both pieces are hanging now, the bishop, also the queen. Too many tactical problems white has near now. Queen to d3 has to be played. Now we have rook to e4, again with the threat of rook to e1. We have now bishop to e6, the only move here by Ganguly, but now king to h8, nothing can be done. Even if you try, I don't know, knight to c4 here seems tempting, that you're trying to attack somehow. Black can even sacrifice the exchange here, which is really crazy. It leads into a wild line after queen to e6 and maybe a check. It seems so that you're losing decisive material, but now look at this, queen to h3. You go here with the king, and then a rook to g4 simply wins the game here for black. So even if you try instead of rook to e6, knight to f4 is possible. So you can just pick up a good move, and the position is collapsing here for white anyway. So that's why here after king to h8, we have rook to c1, trying somehow to control the position here. But now knight to f4 by Arjun, queen to b3, knight takes d5. Look at this. Even if you try bishop to d5, as we said, then rook to e1 is immediately checkmate. So that's why after knight to d5, rook to f3 has been played. But now after knight to f3, in this particular position, here Ganguly resigned. So what's the issue? Even if you try queen to f3, then we pick up the piece. Nothing can be done. Rook to f4 is going to happen. White lost the whole rook, so nothing can be done in this particular position. So crazy Najdorf Sicilian here by Arjun Erigiaisi. We saw there were possibilities for both sides, but the position was too complicated. This was just a matter of who is a better tactician, and I think Arjun showed that he at least calculated the position in a better way. Crazy tactics could have been played, so very interesting line of the Najdorf Sicilian. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. So now we're skipping, of course, to the World Chess Championship match between Gukesh and Ding in the round 11. So, of course, we're going to cover the game today. But as a warm-up, I think this was a very brilliant game here by Arjun Erigiasi. So, okay, if you want to see some other games that we have covered here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our Come to Chess games. And if you want to see even crazier games, check out our Come to Chess games played by computers, where we analyze some beautiful AI games. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.